So my parents have always loved traveling. In 1999, they went together to Mexico. They fell in love with it. They came back 2 times, and little did they know they would have been back to America 24 years later with us. We went to Cuba in the middle of the school year, and although very grateful to have had the chance to travel around the world, discover new cultures, build unforgettable memories, I won't lie that I was very scared to miss 2 weeks of school. It may seem like nothing, but I couldn't help myself not thinking that my grades would have gone worse, that I would have gone out of track. But looking back, I'm so grateful that I had the strength to simply not care, to go for my trip, to have fun. Maybe my assignments weren't that great. Maybe I scored lower in my tests back home, but it's nothing in comparison to what I've gained in my trip. So I hope you will enjoy it, and let's start with the beginning. We had 2 flights. The first one from Bologna to Paris, then we stayed in the Paris airport for about 6 hours, then took a second flight from Paris to Havana. It left at about 6 p.m. and landed at 9 p.m. ish. However, due to time zones, it lasted like 9 hours. We were super tired, we got our taxi and had a very restful night in our casa particular. For those of you who don't know what a casa particular is, it's basically an Airbnb where locals offer you a bedroom, sometimes a kitchen too, other services like changing your money or maybe making you dinner. Our casas particulares were very cheap. Everything was walkable and it was overall an amazing experience. So the first thing we did in Havana was to have a walk in Plaza Vieja. There we met a very strange local who actually recommended us a place to have breakfast in. And there we had the most traditional Cuban breakfast, consisting of bread with butter and eggs, fruit, sandwiches and very freshly made juices. After our definitely nourishing meal, we went to have a walking tour in Havana Vieja, which is the historical city center. We visited Plaza de Armas, El Templete y El Castillo de la Real Fuerza, where there was a stunning museum about boats and navigation. We then kept exploring Havana Centro, and I just couldn't stop noticing how vivid and charmful the colors of the city looked, how amazing the cars were, the souvenir shops, the murales, the street food, people dancing and chatting in the street, and overall the vibe of the city was joyful. Quite literally spent an hour and a half trying to make our phones work. In Cuba, connections are held by an agency called IDEXA. You can either buy a card that has some minutes of Wi-Fi connections in it, or you could buy a SIM card that has gigas in it. Of course, the connection is not as strong as in Europe. We had some difficulties trying to download images or videos, but it was pretty much manageable. We then went to lunch and we had a pretty traditional Cuban meal consisting of rice and a source of protein like pork, chicken, fish or lobster, paired with some vegetables. We of course had some drinks like mojito and Cuba Libre. It was all so affordable, like a normal plate would cost between 3 and 5 euros, whereas drink would be from 1 to 3 euros. We woke up to the amazing view of our casa particular, and then we took a taxi drive to the airport in order to rent our car. Even though we had previously booked our car, it was a very intense experience to get it. We had to wait for about 2 hours, and once we finally got it, we started driving to Vinales. What is strange about Cuban highways is that there aren't shops, there aren't restaurants, there are very few gas stations, and due to the fuel crisis, we sometimes would have to go from one gas station to the other looking for fuel. You always have to keep in mind when traveling by car in Cuba that you're gonna need to stay fueled, so you're gonna need food, water, there aren't shops to buy anything, and you're also gonna need to have your car fueled very frequently because of the fuel crisis. We likely found a restaurant in the middle of nowhere where we had lobster with rice and black beans. And of course we had to stay hydrated, but there wasn't water in the restaurant, it was finished, so we just had orange juice. Something to be very careful about in Cuba is tourist traps and scams. Especially in Havana streets, there are always people stopping you and asking you for money or offering to accommodate you in casas particulares, restaurants, and then making you pay both your staying expenses and their own taxes. On our way to Vinales, we got stopped by a policeman. He asked us to offer a ride to a stranger there and to take him to Vinales to its plantation. He hadn't been able to reach his workplace because buses weren't working due to fossil fuel crisis. We agreed and we tightened to have some more space for this man. He was actually very sweet and took us to a panoramic point where we had the chance to see an amazing landscape and to admire nature we had never seen before. The man then asked us whether we wanted to have a tour in his plantation. We agreed, even though we were a little skeptical about it. We had the chance to see how tobacco leaves are cultivated, cut, then dried to be rolled in order to make cigars. It was a very particular experience and something I would recommend, even though to this day we don't know if the man actually had lost his bus ride.